Historically, the Ipswich River was a very productive river. In fact, the river's original name, Agawam, is a Native American term meaning place where fishes of passage resorted, which is indicative of the prior abundance of migratory fish.
The town was founded in 1634. In 1637, that's only 3 years after the founding, the Select Board gave Richard Saltonstall the right to build a grist mill just over there, and he would mill all the flour for the town in it. But to have a grist mill or any sort of mill, you need a dam. So he built the first dam in the town in 1637, probably one of the earliest in the state.
There's high restoration value for removal of the Ipswich Mills Dam. Not only would removal restore migratory fish habitat and ecological health back to the river, but would have additional wide-ranging benefits.
The fish that we're targeting for restoration in the Ipswich River, in particular river herring, the American shad, American eels, they've been living in pure salt water, in some cases for 4 years straight since they were born. They are, for the first time in 4 years, returning from 32 parts per thousand salt water and making their way into pure fresh water.
So the way that dams impact water quality is that they slow the water, and that causes the river to stagnate. And when that happens, the concentration of dissolved oxygen in the water goes down, and then also water temperature goes up. That can be challenging for species that depend on free-flowing water and high water quality. So when you remove the dam, the temperature of the river improves, and the concentration of dissolved oxygen, which fish rely on, goes back up again.
The fish that come out of the Ipswich River or any of our coastal rivers, the babies are born in the springtime, and often if you stand at a location like this on the edge of a river in the fall and late summer, you can actually see schools of thousands, if not tens of thousands of baby juvenile river herring and shad, if you're on a shad river, out migrating. And if I'm out recreationally fishing off Ipswich or off Gloucester or Rockport, I'm looking sometimes for those schools of baby river herring.
One of the interesting things about dams, particularly run-of-river dams, which are what we have throughout Massachusetts, is that those dams essentially back up the river behind them and raise the water level. And so during large storms and flood events, the flood levels behind the dam are actually higher than they would be without the dam in place. So when you remove the dam, you reduce flood levels upstream. In addition, many dams cause a threat to downstream businesses and residents, because if they were to burst catastrophically, that would cause damage. So removing the dam can reduce flood risk upstream and also reduce flood risk downstream.
In 2010, a unanimous vote by the Ipswich Select Board initiated the exploration of numerous factors surrounding the dam. The full feasibility study, completed in 2019, generated findings on every aspect of dam removal. The main finding was that mitigation of nearby building settlement may be required if soft soils are confirmed.
We really need to have many public forums over the next, year or so, and then ultimately we want to be able to know what the total impact is going to be. If mitigation is required or needed, what's that going to cost, along with what the dam removal is going to cost, and then what the impact ultimately financially will be to the town. Everyone's working hard on it, and we look forward to taking the next steps to find out if we can make mitigation happen and address all the concerns everyone has.
We recognize that all impacts associated with a project are often built together as a package. There are in many cases dam removals that may be as inexpensive as 10% of the project cost is the actual removal. 90% of the cost is sometimes historic preservation costs associated with historic issues. Armoring of banks to protect local properties associated with some erosion that may happen, or walls that need to be reinforced.
In addition to meetings throughout the community and at Town Hall, environmentally minded students, part of the Climate Cafe team, hosted a public conversation to discuss the Ipswich Mills Dam.
I think that we need to consider how the entire Ipswich community is in a way centered around the river. I think it's important that we give back to the environment, especially after everything we've taken from it. Since the mill is not in use anymore, if it's unneeded, we shouldn't have it.
My personal feeling as a historian is that the interesting bits of this history have gone. We can record them, we can put up nice informational plaques telling people the history, and we can have a river that is like it was before the first settlers came and started to use the river for power.
I would like to see the river run free because I think it's important to plan for the future, for 7 generations. I get to spend a lot of time on the river in the summertime, whether it's just walking near it or kayaking or swimming in it. And I want that for my daughter, if she chooses to have children, for her children. And I feel like we live in a world where there's not a lot of that planning always being done. So I think it's important to not just think about the next 10 or 20 years, but 100 years down the line.
Rivers have been a key part of human civilization and have helped us to grow and prosper. Let's give them our thanks by setting them free.